So after that experience with Dr. Margolin, I'm not gonna lie to you, it did bring a sense of peace. Uh and I realized, like I said, everything I said in the previous video was genuine, right? That I did need to forgive this person. It was for my own good. And yes, it was a little forced in the beginning. But because I wasn't necessarily thinking or prioritizing that, but that interaction helped me realize why this was beneficial for both of us. Just leave it at that. So, like I said, Summerlin, California, it is that kind of place. So I remember another time where I had a friend over and it was just the two of us and we were talking about this kind of thing. And like, again, I came to realize that a spirit was like standing behind her, and I told her as best that I could what I thought and could realize about this individual. I do sometimes have a hard time recognizing who the person is. So I that's why I don't feel comfortable calling myself a psychic medium. And again, I think that to an extent, this is something that a gift that we all have, an ability that we all have. Anyway, I don't remember all the details, but later on, a couple days later, like, she told me who she thought that person was, and it kind of clicked because I couldn't recognize who this person was. And in my experience, if it's someone who's talking to me, I can recognize who they are. So, the other kind of, I'm gonna jump a little bit again, but the other really spiritually dynamic time of my life was in the middle of the pandemic. That, like, from there, middle of 2020 through the middle-ish, of 2021. No, a little bit more than that. No. The end of 2021. So beginning of 2022. So again, you'll see why I'm like trying to define that time frame, but that describes a good chunk of my campaign for Congress, for the U.S. House of Representatives. And that's the other time in my life when so many different spirits reached out to try to contact me or to try to make themselves known. So I will describe, I can think of 3 very specific instances. So maybe pretty early on in the pandemic was when I kind of made the decision that I was going to run for office. And it was, again, I'm very, very much summarizing it because that's absolutely not the point of this video. But the point is that there were so many like ducks in a row that just literally spiritually worked themselves out. And I know I didn't say that correctly, but I'm going to talk about this first time. And one of them was that I had written a book, and I had written most of it. I had it published in 2017, but it wasn't the right book. I don't know how else to say it, but I had to rewrite that, and it was maybe about half of the book was in the new book that I was writing, but I kid you not. So this isn't going to make any sense after what I just said, but I went into my office during the pandemic, and in 5 days, in 1 week, I put together this new book, which was about half of the first book. This one, A Real San Francisco Story with Pets. This is the new book, which is about half of the first one. This book, Growing Up in San Francisco, Pets, and My Journey of Self-Acceptance, you won't find this book. This I published in 2017, and I quickly pulled. off the shelves because this was not the right work. This was not the inspired work that this one is. So again, I know that sounds absolutely crazy and it doesn't really make sense. What I'm getting at is that in those 5 days that like I took some of this and pushed it into this, a book that like I'm very proud of and that is the intended work that I wanted, for lack of a better term. In those 5 days is the first time that I felt the presence of my grandfather, my abuelito. I'll talk about the other grandfather. Let me make that very clear. So, my abuelita has always been there. She's always been there for me. She only comes like when I need her. She doesn't like impose herself. My abuelito, I never met the man, but he was a businessman, and that's how he's kind of always, when I've needed him and when I felt him come in, it's always been like, XYZ, this is what you need to do. Again, for lack of a better term, that's the best way that I can describe it. I would not have been able, and I know that this was not, completely original work, right? That some of it, at least half, if not around half, was taken from this one. I fully believe that I was able to get this together over that 5 to 7 day time period because of with the help of my abuelito and abuelita. I credit them 100%. I know that sounds, I don't care how I genuinely don't care how that sounds. It's just the truth. So that's the first instance that I want to talk about during this time period that I described earlier, middle of the pandemic through the end of 2021, which was, again, one of the most spiritually dynamic times of my life. I'll talk about the second one, obviously, in the next video.